6 teams. One common goal: to win the world's oldest international sporting trophy. That is sailing's most prestigious prize. Welcome to the 37th America's Cup. I'm Matthew Sheehan and I've been a sailing journalist for over 30 years and I've raced sailing boats all my life. I've reported on every single America's Cup match around the world since 2002. I don't mind admitting that it's an obsession because, as many who've followed the richest prize in the sport will tell you, the Cup gets under your skin and can become highly addictive. From the intensity of the racing to a fascinating history that continues to create new twists and turns, this is also an event that has been at the leading edge of design and technology for 172 years. In fact, it's where the Cup started. Between now and the 37th America's Cup match in October 2024, we'll be producing regular features about the richest prize in sailing. We'll look at why it's become a fixation for those that have tried to win it, how it works, why it's so revered, and how this generation of teams are trying to win it. So join us on the road to the 37th America's Cup. The America's Cup is the oldest international sporting trophy. It's competed for in the most advanced sailing yachts in the world. And it's the trophy that everyone wants to win. Yet in 172 years, few have ever succeeded. In fact, it was 132 years before a team other than the Americans won it. And in terms of time, this still represents the longest winning streak in sporting history. It's been competed for 36 times so far. And despite history suggesting that the odds are stacked against them, there's no shortage of teams that are prepared to spend many millions trying to win it. And this time around, the America's Cup cycle starts here in Villanova, a la Geltrú in southern Spain, in a radical new flying 40-footer, the AC-40. Capable of top speeds of over 90 kilometers an hour, this is the fastest single-hulled one-design class in the world. But the AC-40 is so new that no one knows what's really possible when they're put under real racing pressure. Which is why this event, the first event in the America's Cup preliminary series, attracted so much attention. The boats are revolutionary and the racing breaks new ground. The match for the Cup itself takes place in Barcelona in October 2024, in a series of 2-boat races between the current Cup holders, Emirates Team New Zealand, and the most successful challenger. That challenger will be selected from one of 5 teams that have entered. Ineos Britannia from Great Britain, Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli from Italy, New York Yacht Club American Magic from the USA, Alinghi Red Bull Racing from Switzerland, and Orient Express Racing Team from France. Over the next 11 months, these teams will prepare for a series in August 2024, where the winning team will take on the New Zealanders in Barcelona. Between now and then, teams will be engaged in an intense period of design and development as they prepare to launch their final race boat. They will be testing and training. They will also be locking horns with their opponents in a number of preliminary regattas, the first of which is here in Villanova. But just as the road to the America's Cup is sometimes complex, so too was the weather for the first event. The event schedule had been for 8 fleet races to take place over 3 days, with the top 2 boats going into a match race final. Thunder, lightning and torrential rain on the opening day meant that racing had to be abandoned before it had even started. But day 2 was a very different affair. The sun was out, the breeze was in and the spectator fleet had arrived. The big question now was whether the wind would hold for the 4 races that were scheduled. As the first race got underway, there was just enough wind for the boats to get onto their foils, but staying on them was tricky.
Top mark for the first time, and it will be Emirates Team New Zealand that will round the mark, but boy, they are doing it tough and have touched down.
A mistake that opened the door for Orient Express Racing, who passed through to take the lead. From there, the French fought off a challenge from the Italians and won the opening race. An impressive performance for the newest team. In the second race, the breeze had dropped even further, making it tricky to stay on the foils. Most didn't. Alinghi Red Bull Racing was the only team to get a good start.
So we do have a start in race number 2 of this preliminary regatta.
But the commentators were taking nothing for granted.
This race has got a long way to go. It's not over till it's over. It's going to be some tense moments still to come, I think.
And there were, as Emirates Team New Zealand came from a long way behind to overtake the Swiss and win the race. And at the end of the day, it was the French Orient Express Racing team, along with Emirates Team New Zealand, that were lying first and second. The weather forecast for the final day of racing in Villanova looked much more promising, with around 10 knots of wind for much of the afternoon. So what are the AC40s and what role do they play in the America's Cup? These 12-metre boats are all identical in design and construction, and under the rules, every team has to have one. These are very advanced boats that are extremely quick, capable of speeds of close to 100 kilometres an hour. But they're not the boats that will be used for the America's Cup itself. When it happens next year, the Cup will be raced for in custom-built 75-foot boats. In the meantime, these AC40s are test boats for teams to practice in, both for training and for racing. They'll also be used for the Youth America's Cup Series and the Women's America's Cup next year. We'll take a look at them in more detail in a later programme. Now, aside from understanding how and why this happens, which we'll explain in a later episode, you may be wondering why Yanmar has formed an association with the America's Cup. Marine master dealer Eduardo Platero was watching the first preliminary regatta in Villanova very closely and was absolutely clear as to why the collaboration is so important.
Now we see the future of the boats with a foiling boats is now we see the future. We are a main engine marine for sailing boats. So Yanmar in that point is very important to support the America's Cup. America's Cup is the most important racing on the world, on the planet. Today is very exciting also here in Villanova. Many people arrive not only from the Villanovas, also for around the Villanova, from Barcelona, Tarragona. Many people here today. It's a new format. I think it's a new format of the Copa America, a new experience, and I think for the people we have many more interest on that type of the boats. It's the future.
Meanwhile, back in the heated competition on the final day, with all 6 teams foiling around in the start zone, conditions looked good. Speeds were up where everyone wanted to see them, with boats reaching 3 times the wind speed and clocking up over 32 knots on the fastest legs of the course. That's 60 kilometres an hour. 4 races were scheduled, 3 fleet races and a final shootout for the top 2 teams. In the fleet races, American Magic and Emirates Team New Zealand delivered consistent performances, and it was this pair that went into the final. But the weather was to have the final word. As the pair lined up for their head-to-head battle, the wind dropped to below the race minimum of 6.5 knots, forcing the race committee to abandon the race. This left the Americans at the top of the leaderboard. Well, there we have it. American Magic win the first preliminary regatta of the 37th America's Cup. It's a significant result. They went into this race as the favourites, with everybody knowing that up until now, Team New Zealand have been pretty dominant. But we are also on our way to the 37th America's Cup.
A sustainable future. Yanmar.